Hey guys, so today we're going to be talking about wellness and how that affects your students' behavior. Because when students' wellness is good, they're more likely to be engaged, have a better attitude about school. It helps reduce stress and depression. And there's actually an article by Scholarship and Creative Works that did a study on student wellness and student engagement. And they actually found that promoting positive behaviors boosts academic achievement. And this is part of a school bonding research that they did. And so it really is important. And how can you help your students be well? Teach them how to take care of themselves so that their behavior is more positive and they are more likely to be engaged in your classroom. So I'll be discussing this with Andrew Smith, our school counselor, that we have our monthly chat, and this is what we're going to talk about today. So don't miss a thing, and don't forget, share this episode, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. Welcome to Behavior Strategies for Class. I am Diane Bachman, your behavior paraprofessional with over 15 years of experience working in special education. And I'm so glad you're here because I'll be teaching you about social emotional learning, behavior strategies, trauma-informed care, and more. So if you are tired of being frustrated and not knowing what to do with your students who have challenging and disruptive behavior, you're in the right place. Now, if you're ready to become more equipped to help your students learn and grow, let's listen in to today's episode. Hey guys, welcome back to Behavior Strategies for Class. This is our monthly chat, inspiration, wisdom from our school counselor, Mr. Andrew Smith. And today we are going to talk about wellness and behavior and how do those go together and how can we help our students get wellness, get well, so that it does affect their behavior in a positive way. So, Andrew, what are a couple ways that we can help our students create wellness for themselves while they're at school?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. I always tend to think of holistic child like everything because that's everything's a slice of the pie, no matter what, right?
Right.
Because you know, one thing, basic needs, right? We talk about Maslow's all the time as when working in schools about meeting those basic needs. Food, got to have good stuff coming in, right?
Yeah.
There's been so much research lately on the gut to brain link,
Oh,
so
yeah.
that your stomach biome and your intestinal biome that can have an effect on your brain and your emotional capacity through the hormonal shift that happens when your diet is off or changes or has different things that are maybe not the best for you. So there's a big link right there. So just processed foods, even if it's nothing but Cheetos or Takis, which
Are
that seems to be
delicious.
kind of one of the big things right now, right? And they're delicious, don't get me wrong. However, that process part introduces so much into there that the gut biome changes, and then that has effects up into your hormonal system, which affects your emotional capacity and your nervous system and everything, because that they're all interconnected, right? So even just something as little as let's throw some fresh fruit in there. It's amazing to me sometimes how some kids who don't quite have all of that, for whatever reason, they will like devour any fresh fruits because they just don't know when they're going to get their next round with it, right?
Right.
And that tends to be when you're talking about donations to food pantries and things like that, that tends to be the things that aren't donated because they're perishable.
Yeah.
So even just offering some bananas, right? Snickers is good. Bananas are better, right? Because you're not you when you're hungry. And we've all been hangry at least once
Exactly.
in our life, and that puts on the grouchy pants, and ain't nobody got time for that.
Yep.
Which brings me to the sleep factor, right? Just as much as food is important, so is sleep. And the science of sleep is just amazing. It's so interesting to me. I was looking it up the other day for recommendations
Uh-huh.
for something different, and it just the what happens when you go to sleep is so crazy to me. There's so much hormonal shifts that happen to get your brain into the state that it needs to dream about, I don't know, sheep and all sorts of different things, right? Winning the lottery, flying, getting powers or whatever you end up dreaming about. I mean, I'm sure you guys all are about the same like me, that's a recurring dream where you get to fly around, right? Um,
Superpowers.
and I think Freud would probably have a few things to say about all those things with his dream analysis. But one of the biggest things that happens is that you have a reduction in stress. And part of that is it lowers cortisol levels. Then
Right.
with stress, cortisol rises, and that's a natural reaction to any sort of stress or threat that happens to our system, right? Even good stress, our cortisol raises. Um, and so you have some different things that, for lack of a better term, they get flushed out when you sleep. And what that does is that lowers your overall level of stress, allowing you to feel rested and to get more of that beta level sleep and things like that, depending on how long you sleep, right? That keeps you in that deeper sleep. So, um, it also allows you to process. So not only on a physical level, but on the mental level, you process your day, your emotions, your intelligence is able to kind of sift through everything to store what it feels like it's going to be useful later on, right? If you've talked
Uh-huh.
about something 10 times, right? They talk about do you touch it 7 times or 10 times as far as learning to make it
Right.
permanent. It sifts through that and kind of just starts deciding, and you're unconscious of that a lot on its own. But that's like its prime working hours, right? So the interesting thing is seeing an MRI of a brain that is sleeping and an MRI of a brain when it is learning, and they're
Wow.
very close together. There's some discrepancy about how much it's working, like when they do those scans,
Uh-huh.
it's not quite all the way like 100% of when you're learning, but it's really
Wow.
close. Yeah, so it like I said, it just kind of blows my mind. Um, so for our kids that are in elementary school, right, the actual recommendation is like 10 to 12 hours, which is a lot more than I remember
Right.
getting. It's a lot more than my kids are getting because they tend to be more like me with night owls and their, circadian rhythms that happen to be a little bit, shifted a little bit later. We have a little bit more anxiety and ADHD on my side of the family. Um, and that just shifts that circadian rhythm. So
Mm-hmm.
creating those routines to help with child wellness means that we have to kind of work around that because that's the natural thing. Like it doesn't feel natural to go to bed at 10. 11 or 12 so it feels good for me, but
Yeah,
at 5 or 6, that does not feel great. That's where coffee comes in big time.
exactly.
At least for me, right? When you're in teenagers, it can kind of flux, but 8 to 10 hours, somewhere in there, tends to be kind of more where that'll get you that prime sleep time.
Mm-hmm.
So sleeping helps you grow in your intelligence, helps your body restore itself because it's not just your brain, but your muscles do a lot of repair work,
Right.
and a lot of growth for that time period. And if you're just still growing, like through puberty or post puberty or pre, um, there's some studies now about pre-puberty. I can't say that right, but
Pre
that's a
pre.
little tongue turner for me, but where you have a lot of hormonal release in anticipation of growth, right? And then cartilage areas start working and changing so that they can start calcifying to like grow your bones. Um,
Right.
a lot of rest needs to happen at that point too. So there's just a lot of shifts that are constantly happening. And then, so the repair work in the brain on the physical level means growing more connections, not only just the mental state of sifting through those memories. If you want to take the idea of a tabletop, right? And we talked about something that's seven, you touch it 7 or 10 times, right?
Right.
Teacher's always like giving you the whole like You might need to remember this, this might be on that test, right?
Yeah.
It keeps it on the table, and then it starts shifting stuff off, and whatever's left after it shifts stuff off, that's what goes into long-term memory, right? If you guys want to think about, we were talking about Inside Out or Inside Out 2, right?
Right.
The idea of storing those core memories that happens during sleep. So that movie is phenomenal. If you can, if people can go see it, and, and I don't know if you're sponsored by him, but there's a plug right there.
No, but I should be apparently.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's amazing. Just some of the different things. It's just fun to watch. Period. Right? Amy
Yeah.
Poehler do a great job as far as actors and actresses, and it's just fun. But it also has a lot of really good representations and like visuals of the concepts of the wellness and the mental health in there. So, and speaking of which, then it's increasing social emotional literacy, mental health literacy, just
Right.
increasing kids' knowledge of what that means even,
Right.
right? And growing up in the 80s and 90s, like that wasn't mentioned. You knew that some people had some things that were going on. Nobody
Right.
talked about it. In my family, we had my aunt has an intellectual disability, so I knew some of that because, well, Aunt Laura came over and you had to do things a certain way growing up, right?
Right.
Um, so increasing the literacy for younger kids, and this is where we've started seeing that with millennials, with Generation Z, Generation um, I forget alpha now, things like that. They're being exposed to it a little bit more. So it's increasing the literacy in how to navigate through that. And
Yes.
it's still a balancing process, right?
Mm-hmm.
When do you need to have grit and when do you need to stop and remove yourself, right? Do you force
Right.
yourself to work through that hardship and that adversity? Or is that where you need to like pull the ripcord and say, I'm done with that?
Done.
And
Yeah.
so even just letting kids know that sometimes those are options, that increases the literacy right there. So
True.
trying to kind of bolster all those areas and things like that, that covers a very general wide view of
Yeah.
how do you support wellness. Um, and when you have that healthiness, that creates the connections we always talk about, right? Creating the
Right.
connections and the relationships because you're demonstrating the healthy care for yourself and for others, right? If you take care of yourself, if you put your own oxygen mask on, then you're going to be
Exactly.
here for others.
Exactly. Back to the nutrition, at least here in Colorado, I feel like they've kind of gotten that information because we actually have like a salad bar that is offered to students. So they do have some healthier choices. And I think those definitely, like you said, make a difference. There's still kids that are, they don't want any part of that, but at
Put
least
that
it's an
same thing,
option
yeah.
to have. And also, I've worked with students who have autism, and these parents, some of these parents have already figured it out and they're on a pure organic diet. They definitely do not eat any school lunches. And even any of the snacks that, that we have at school, they would never have any of that. They always had their own good, wholesome, organic food. And I mean, overall, at that point, I couldn't tell a difference because I didn't know them, when they weren't specifically on that type of diet. But there's obviously some research to that as well, just like you said. What are you putting into your body is going to affect how you feel and how you behave. And same thing with the sleep. I mean, like you said, we all know how we feel when we don't get enough sleep. And unfortunately, some students, they have no choice because of whatever family situation they're stuck in. We've had some students who've been sleeping in their car or they're sleeping in a hotel bed with like three other people. And, these kids come to school and they have no motivation. And, and then you as the teacher, now sometimes you're frustrated because they're not doing their work and blah, 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 where we're not coming back to, like you said, those fundamentals. Like, did you eat last night or did you even eat breakfast this morning? Like, did you sleep? I mean, thankfully in our position, we've been able to help some students, give them an hour, go take a nap, and really they are much more functional when they come back from that. Obviously that's not always a choice for some schools, but if you're able to just let them do that
Yeah.
because they're not benefiting at all and you're just getting frustrated and irritated, let them take a nap. I mean, you're going to get more out of them once they come back
Absolutely.
and are able to focus more. So those are great, great things because, obviously we can't control what happens at home. And when do they shut off their iPad and are they watching YouTube and TikTok all night? I've had some students do that too. Like, oh, I've been watching this and this. I'm like, really? Like, you don't sleep? Like, what is happening?
Well, not much, probably. Yeah.
No. And that, yeah, I mean, that could be a whole parenting,
That's that's a whole
story.
area right there, like tech addictions and blue shifted light interrupting REM sleep,
Yeah.
things like that. I mean, that's a whole like scientific area right there,
Yeah,
as well as just like discussion about like tech and how that works. Yeah, no,
exactly.
but more and more we have to deal with the fallout of it. That's the hard part.
Right.
So
Yeah,
trying to promote your own kids as well as your students' health, I think it can never be overdone, right? Because
yeah,
there's always just new challenges with that, and new kids that just need that help. And if
exactly.
you're listening to the podcast, you're already hitting that fourth area of wanting to care and love about your kids, and that's. I was just thinking about the Rhesus monkey experiment where they did wire monkeys, right?
Uh-huh.
And so this is an experiment where they had rhesus monkeys who are very intelligent, right? And
Yeah.
they're cute little guys too, right? I always think of the monkey from Friends. And what they did was they had terry cloth monkeys, and so they had a wire monkey and one that was covered in terry cloth. And what they would do is they would have the monkey would be fed from the wire monkey, and so they would have
Okay.
it. It would cuddle with the terry cloth, and so at one point, because they're scientists and they like to mess with things, at one point that was the one that was giving them food,
Okay.
right? And so everything was great. It would snuggle. It would actually cuddle with this wire monkey, this wire frame of a monkey. As a baby rhesus monkey, it would snuggle with that one, and
Wow.
it was soft. It had terry cloth all around it, so it wouldn't get poked or anything like that.
Yeah.
So then they that was their control, and they switched to the experimental side of what happens when we have the wire monkey, the plain wire one, be the one that feeds it. So what they found was that the baby monkey, would still go over there and feed, and as
Oh,
soon as it was done, it'd come back and it would snuggle with the one that had no milk. And so it just kind of reinforced our need
wow.
for love and
Yes.
comfort and you know, and just companionship. And that's one of the other basic needs that comes through. And that's one of the biggest primary drivers for us for being connectors. I mean, most teachers I've met, that's their goal. I want to be that connection. I had that
Yeah.
connection as a kid. I want to be that for somebody else. And so that's that fourth area of keeping that emotional wellness and that feeling of belonging that we all have. And that's one of those big drivers. That's a huge slice of that pie that
For
helps
sure.
kids be well. And so that's a big part. Yes, we need them to have food. We can't control that. We can give them food. We can have them sleep. And just the act of like caring, like you're talking about, is
Yeah.
so huge for some of those kids. And that's where, yeah, we might make some slow gains to start,
Right.
once we have their trust and that connection, they take off, and science shows that. If you if you look at emotional connection and safety and well-being in the classroom,
Huge.
performance goes like skyrockets for some kids
Yeah.
that they just didn't have it. And some kids are going to do well no matter what. But some kids, that's what's going to take.
Yes. I mean, it just reminds me, for some of our students, school is their refuge.
Yep.
It's their safe spot. It's their place. They know they're going to get cared for. They know they're going to get something to eat. And they're so happy to be there. And so to be able to give them that connection, and like you said, building that trust when we can meet even their basic needs and they can trust us to do that, then all right, now we're ready to learn and we're ready to engage. And, it's huge to see that academic growth as well as their social and emotional being grow as well. Um, I was also thinking of some coping skills that is helpful to help them get their wellness because it's crazy to see so many students just struggling with like a common thing of just being told no or just redirected. And it's not a major thing that they're doing, but then you tell them no, or you tell them, we need to be over here, not here. And now they're blown up, like they can't handle it. What are some coping skills that you would suggest that would help their wellness as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I always talk about no usually means not right now, but not never. Because I ain't got time to guarantee never.
Yeah,
Maytag anymore isn't about for forever, so they can't even guarantee that,
yeah,
right? If you've had any of the old or any of the newer Maytag model dishwashers, that used to be their tagline, right? Like
yeah,
Maytag forever or something along those lines. So if they can't even guarantee it, then I can't for sure.
exactly.
So being able to point that out to kids is a big thing. And a lot of times we start with a cognitive error, right? That we have this association that no means I am done, I'm not accepted, it's forever going to be the worst, you're the
Yes,
worst, you hate
right.
me, all of those things. And so we start talking about when we have some safety of like, I'm going to tell you no, but that doesn't mean like never. No means not right now.
Yeah,
And so sometimes that
it's
reminder
good.
of not right now. And some kids truly need that shift in that language piece, right?
Yeah.
Because no is always going to mean disassociation, disconnect, because of the way
Hmm.
that others have taught them that,
Right.
modeled that, and used that against them, right? And
Yeah.
so sometimes that shift in that language on our end as the other person can be very helpful with that. So sometimes we're helping with that coping skill right there. A lot of mindfulness is super important if you lower your overall stress level,
Mhm.
right? And there's a lot of studies that mindfulness, when it's practiced in a consistent manner, right? It's not usually a rescue thing, right? Like
Right.
I blew my top already. It's not like, okay, think of your power mantra and then you come back down. Like that happens in movies and things like that. But generally,
Not reality.
mindfulness is, yeah, power animal, goose fraba, right? Like think of my cave, right? And those work. It seems so funny, but those work on a consistent basis when we're already calm to help reduce all of that, right?
Right.
So that we don't go to a 12. We don't start off at like a 9 to go to 12. Maybe we start off at a 6, right?
Yeah.
So having some time for mindfulness is super important. And that can be anywhere from, it used to be taboo to talk about mindfulness because it was all of this, touchy-feely stuff, but it can be anything of just intentional acts.
Mm.
Mindfulness at its core, at a very general definition of it, is an intentional act, right? I'm intentionally being here in the moment, right? So I'm intentionally looking around and noticing my environment and just taking time to set my stuff away. If I'm in school, I'm setting my stuff away so I don't even have to look at math. And I always pick on math, but I don't even have to look at that. And I'm going to notice the things around me and I'm going to ground myself in my senses. So we talk about, you know, I always talk to kids about having primary senses, your sight, sound, touch, taste,
Uh-huh.
smell, right? And grounding yourself in one of those. There's another one of just taking that break and removing yourself from the situation temporarily, right? There's so many times where we force
Right.
kids to work through something where I myself, I wouldn't, I would take a break. I would walk away for a second,
Yeah,
right? So
exactly.
why am I trying to force you to like sit there and hammer this out when neither one of us, we're at loggerheads, neither one of us is giving.
Right.
I want to walk away and take a break. Why can't I allow the kid to do that? So knowing and teaching them that like, hey, giving them the language, hey, I need a break right now. Doesn't mean that that expectation is going to go away,
Right.
but we need to have our cooler emotional state to be able to actually solve that problem.
Right.
And that, offering collaborative problem solving can be a big thing. There's Dr. Ross Green has a big part of that. You can do that on a smaller scale of offering a solution, right? If something's working you up about how something's not working right, like your anxiety is starting to pick up, and
Yeah.
kids can do this. It takes a little coaching to get there, but offering a solution. Okay, don't just tell me no. Tell me why not, or tell me what would work. Like you're telling me all the ways this isn't gonna work, right? And my kids and my wife are tired of hearing this. Like, don't tell me what you don't want for dinner. Like, that's
Yeah.
great. Tell me what you do want, right? Because that helps me solve that problem with you, right? So being able to be that person that offers that, um, breathing, so doing the square breathing, the belly breathing, the Buddha breathing, the we used to call it Santa Claus breathing, or there's all sorts of different things
Blowing
for.
out the candles. Yeah.
Yep, yep, just in that slower, intentional, methodical breathing.
Yeah.
And there's a different reaction that happens in your brain that releases some um, endorphins and things like that, some of the good feeling chemicals of when you're intentionally breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. That
Mm-hmm.
cyclical breathing that you can get activates different nerves to release some of that. Um, I think somebody told me once, and I don't know. I honestly don't know the scientific accuracy of this, of like it that it's as good as a piece of chocolate. Take that for what it's worth. That for some
Right?
people, breathing
I
slowly and
mean,
intentionally is as good as chocolate.
I
So
don't know about that, but
I'd rather have the chocolate myself,
yes, exactly.
which comes to comfort foods can sometimes be, a great coping skill if you had the worst day in the world and then you come home and boyfriend, girlfriend, mom, dad, whoever made your favorite meal,
Yeah.
makes things a lot
Right.
better. And
Exactly.
that's one where you got to be careful because if your comfort food is every day and every time you come home,
Then
pizza's
that becomes
great,
a
but
problem.
pizza,
Right.
yeah, exactly. Um, so just trying to build those healthy coping skills, and sometimes it's modeling, sometimes you have to have some coaching and guidance for kids and students. Um, but any of those areas are just great ways to keep your body healthy. Getting exercise. Sorry, I'm going to jump back into that one. Getting
Yeah.
exercise and time outside, vitamin D, and having
Yes.
sunlight exposure triggers different parts of your body
For
and
sure.
brain to reduce cortisol levels and to reduce just stress and the feeling of stress.
Yeah.
So, being outside too is a great coping skill, even if it's just 3 minutes to catch your breath. Like,
Yeah.
I tell kids all the time, let's go take a walk outside. And they're like, I thought we weren't supposed to leave school. Like, well, we'll go in the back, right? We'll go in the fenced in yard, all right? That
Yeah.
makes you feel better. Like, I won't run off. Um, but just enough to like, you have the change of scenery, you get the effect of the sunlight exposure, you get the fresh air just
Right.
for the different sensory feel on your skin. And that's enough. So having those areas that will just decrease that, it'll increase your positive associations with that person, right? You're gonna
Right.
in your connection of like, I'm a safe person. We're doing something hard. You may not like me right now.
Yeah.
However,
Exactly.
we'll get you through this. We may not agree, but we'll find a way to get through this.
Yeah.
And so it has a lot of good effects with those. And those are some general areas that you can find at anywhere, right? I always tell kids like you can
Exactly.
practice most of these if you're at home, if you're at a restaurant, if you're outside, if you're at the ball club, right?
Yeah.
Do it pretty much anywhere.
Yeah, those are great. In fact, we have one of our students, she's just been asking for, I need a running break. And she's young enough to where she can't really articulate all of these emotions that I know she's going through. And but for her to know, like, I need to run, it's like, all right, let's go outside. And, we have a field close by and she just runs for 5 minutes and then she's good to go. I'm like,
Yeah,
okay,
that's the
same thing. You're in the sun, she's got the exercise, just that release, I think, of stress and overwhelm. And then she's good to go for a while. So it's
absolutely.
definitely truth there that really does make a difference. So I would definitely encourage that for sure. I mean, all of those coping skills, even gratitude habit, journaling, just being able to release again, get that wellness, and to just to realize like there really is, I believe, something that they can always be thankful for or be
Absolutely.
grateful for, even if it's just like you got your shoes on, like you have clothes on today, dude. Like that's awesome.
You showed up.
Or yeah, you're
Awesome.
here.
We're glad you're here.
Like, yeah, huge. And it's so great. And it makes my heart so happy when I hear teachers like, I am so glad you're here today, to hear it. And I know, they're probably saying it a lot more than what I hear, but just even when I hear it, it just makes my heart so happy because that those students, when they hear that, their heart is just as happy or even happier, to hear that. And so just giving that positive, connection and just saying, I'm so glad you're here today, like, is huge
You
for
might
any
be the only
student.
one that tells them that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All
Yeah.
right. These are great, great strategies, great coping skills, a great way to see how we as educators can help influence the wellness of our students, which then, of course, affect their behaviors. And so we obviously want to get them engaged and doing their best learning as much as possible. And so thank you so much, Andrew, for all that you have shared with us today. And is there any other parting words or anything else you can think of to add to this?
No. Just be well, take care of your own stuff, and take care of them kiddos.
Exactly. Thank you so much for being with us again today. And we will
Pleasure's all
see you
mine.
guys next week. So before you go, I want you to check out the show notes. There is a link so that you can join the wait list for the behavior course that is going to be coming out within the next few weeks. And I want you guys to get the inside scoop and know when it's coming out, and you will be the first to know, the first to be able to sign up and get that opportunity. So check out the show notes, join the wait list, and I will see you next week. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for listening. I truly appreciate your support. And if I have encouraged you, motivated you to continue to learn, to support your students, even better, to help them strive in your classroom, please leave a review, hit that subscribe button so that others can see they can learn and grow here as well. Thank you.